He is just not a good character. But the media basically said, here's the thing. You either get on Team Zelensky or we are going to smear you as a pro-Putin puppet. Put on a suit.
See,
you know?
this is why people got to be careful. I didn't know he tried to go to the Oscars. I didn't know he tried to be on the cover of Vogue. I didn't know that stuff, Candace. I honestly didn't know.
If you want to talk about something Black Americans should learn about, it's the vaccine industry. We were targeted. You know, what was sent over to Africa to experiment and make people infertile.
Okay, that does change it a little bit.
And he is a literal actor, by the way. You know that, right?
That I know. Called him a homosexual actor. Is that true? Did you call him that?
I also just called him the neighborhood crackhead, kind of just goes around asking for money. I've called him a welfare queen, ghetto. I don't like this guy at all.
What's going on, guys? We got to talk about Stephen A. Smith linking up finally with Candace Owens. Okay, these two, I don't think that they've ever had any 1v1 conversation. And Stephen A. Smith was literally stunned by the sheer magnitude of knowledge that Candace Owens has. There's a lot of stuff that clearly he doesn't know. If you've ever watched Stephen A. Smith, you would know this, whereas Candace Owens seems like she knows just about everything on any relevant political topic. So without further ado, let's go ahead and react to this conversation here.
And I think genuinely there's a fatigue that is setting in, that has set in, that was beginning to sort of percolate, of people that are just exhausted with being angry. Do you know what I mean? Like the media constantly selling, this guy's this guy's that, she's this, she's that. I think we're all just tired, and that's kind of a good thing.
Do you believe that Donald Trump won the election, or that the progressive left and their thought process, their policy, some of the things that they were spewing, it was more a product of them losing? That's what I've been saying. It wasn't about him winning. It was about America saying, nah, he's closer to normal than what the hell we're hearing over here. We don't like this. And that's what transpired. What do you think it was?
You are completely on the money with that. It was really more that the left lost. And it was a weird, it was very strange to watch Kamala run. I will say that, because she really only ran for 100 days, right? Trump had been running throughout four years, basically, kind of upset about the loss in 2020. And she kind of just comes in, and it's almost like a coronation, which I think was disrespectful to the left-leaning voter base. Like, it was just, well, he has kind of said he's knighted me, and therefore I am the person that you should be electing. And she didn't really work for it, and rather was, I think, quite accusatory. If you don't elect her, it's because you have an issue with women. I don't think Obama's speech to the brothers, the quote unquote brothers, helped him any. He's been gone. He's in Martha's Vineyard, living in a house, God knows how much it costs, not something I could afford. And then he kind of
living around a bunch of white people. Isn't that always funny? All of these like really woke behind celebrities, especially the black ones. I mean, they just live around a bunch of other either rich black people, which there's not that many of, or mainly rich white people.
Appears to sort of lecture the brothers about their responsibility. And I just don't think it sat well this time around. Just a different time, a different audience, and people kind of realizing, hey, that's not really enough. Paint me a vision. Like, tell me what you're actually going to do for me. Don't tell me that it's just simply my responsibility to give this woman votes because she's a woman.
You know, I want to transition to Trump, back to Trump in this regard. We just saw it, that world just saw. It wasn't a press conference or anything like that. I don't call it that. Him with Ukrainian President Zelensky and how he went at him and what have you. Now, Zelensky, if I remember correctly, you didn't speak too highly of him. I want to make sure I'm quoting you accurately. You called him a homosexual actor. Is that true? Did you call him that?
Wait, what?
I also just called him the neighborhood crackhead, kind of just goes around asking for money.
I haven't heard
called
these
him
things.
A welfare queen, ghetto. This is the thing. The media kind of had me depicted throughout BLM as this person that uses these words to describe black people. I'm like, no. Let's be very clear. When I'm calling somebody like Zelensky a welfare queen, there's a reason for that. You come here with your hand out, asking, making demands. It's funny because I was having a discussion with my husband about this, and you know, it's people that tend to need the most that make these sorts of demands, and they're so arrogant. He's taken billions away, unaccounted billions, by the way. So you and I have to get to work because Zelensky wants his borders protected, and we can't have our borders protected because that would be a racist thing to ask for. But he's allowed to demand that you and I get to work because he spent all the billions. His wife is.
You know what doesn't make any sense? How the hell did we get to the point where basically having an open border is anything besides an open border is racist, xenophobic, all of it it's not an effective strategy, clearly, in terms of getting people to believe you and take your side. I mean, if it was, then they would have won the election. So that's not enough. It just doesn't make any sense to just have just no border and then to turn around and when it's unpopular, then turn around and just lie. Why? Well, we wanted to close the border, but it was Trump who wouldn't have. I feel like out of all the lies, that is one of the stupidest ones that I've ever heard.
Shopping in Paris, the oligarchs in Ukraine are all buying yachts. And yeah, I have absolutely no respect for him, but I want to say I have not respected that man since day one. This is not something that's new. I just saw him coming.
It's not something that's new, but what about Trump and Vance and how they conducted themselves? You and I might disagree on this particular issue because I don't disagree with what you're saying in terms of I was on the record saying, listen, you're coming with your hand out. You need money. You might not want to be confrontational. You might want to be a bit more diplomatic, Zelensky, because you're the one that's in need. And Trump wasn't wrong when he said, or you don't have any of the cards. You don't have any of the cards. The flip side to it, however, is that the press conference, you're in the Oval Office. We know this is the White House. This isn't someplace in Ukraine. And he's got broken English, and you got the vice president interrupting him. You got them, I thought, somewhat bullying him to some degree. I just didn't think it was necessary. It was a good look. That's where I'm coming from. Am I wrong in feeling that way?
No, I think you're perfectly, I mean, these are your feelings. They're valid, right? If that's how you felt. For me, I felt it was refreshing. I'm so tired of politics. I know they always button it up for us. They're constantly telling us, oh, this, and saying things that sound good, but don't actually result in good things. And I think it was sort of the frustration of how much he has taken from America to not come with some respect. And I likened it to, even when you go to your granddad's house and it's your birthday, your mom kind of makes you wear something special. You know, he's going to give you a card and slip some cash in there, $100. Granddad's always good for that. And you just come with some decorum and some respect. This dude has been wearing military fatigues for like 5 years now. Okay. Put on a suit. As soon as he gets out of the car, Trump's like, well, he's dressed up. This should let you know, this should signal to the public that what he's doing is an act. Why? Give me a scenario, a reason why he can't put on a suit. Even if you're in the midst of a war, why can't you put on a suit when you're coming to ask for money? Well, because he wants people to see him as a guy that's downtrodden in the trenches. And he's not that. This guy has been on the cover of Vanity Fair. He's been on the cover of Vogue. He's been on the cover of Forbes. He's doing photo shoots. He did a 3-hour podcast with Lex Friedman. He asked and was declined a spot to go to the Oscars a couple of years ago. And so this is making a mockery. It's just making him put on a suit.
See,
you know?
this is why people got to be careful about messing with you, because I was getting ready to disagree with you until you threw out those last. I didn't know he tried to go to the Oscars. I didn't know he tried to be on the cover of Vogue. I didn't know that stuff, Candace. I honestly didn't know.
Well, yeah, Stephen A., it wouldn't be the first time that you wouldn't know what was going on, much less anything about what you're talking about in general as it relates to politics.
Okay, that does change it a little bit.
And he is a literal actor, by the way. You know that, right?
That I know. What I will say this, any sympathy for the fact that Russia did attack his nation. I mean, that there is some sympathy for that, right? We see the rubble. We see the catastrophe that is Ukraine. We see Putin bombing them, for crying out loud. We've seen that happen, right?
Yeah. So the thing for me is, and the reason why I say that I've had this opinion since the very beginning, is I don't rely on politicians. I think all politicians lie. And so I was reading the transcripts leading up to this moment of Putin's speeches and Biden's speeches and trying to discern what the truth was. And Putin was saying, you guys gave us assurances that NATO was not going to expand 1 inch eastward into our territory. Essentially, NATO is a military. We were putting a military on his border, despite in 1989, when the Berlin Wall came down, as a condition, an agreement for them to agree to take down the Berlin Wall. We promised, and you can go look at this in NSA declassified documents. James Baker was the Secretary of State at that time.
Yes, he was.
We promised them that we would never move NATO eastward. So you have to imagine the memory that they have, and they're going, why are you now doing that? Now all of a sudden we're saying that Ukraine is going to join NATO, and he's saying this is unacceptable. America can't keep changing its mind. And so when I was able to validate what he said and to read the speeches, you cannot walk away from that without an understanding that we are the aggressors. Everything that we say Russia is doing, recreating the Soviet Union, we are doing that. What is the European Union? What is NATO? And we've been getting away from it for too long under this guise of, quote unquote, spreading democracy. So I fundamentally disagreed with what I saw as Western propaganda trying to paint Putin as a monster for holding us to our promises and not telling the public that. He just randomly woke up one day and just said, I want to do hood rat stuff with my friends. And he went into Ukraine. That's a fairy tale. That's not what happened. And
This is what I've been saying actually on this channel for a long time, is that the whole Russia-Ukraine narrative is a farce. You don't even, you don't have to be some sort of Putin supporter to call out the basic facts. Putin has confirmed this himself. This is actually a well-known thing that Ukraine was not supposed to try to get into NATO, but the United States are the ones who were pushing them to do it. Joe Biden was one of the people pushing Zelensky to do it, as if Russia was just gonna just not do anything. And one could argue that this could have potentially been invoked intentionally by countries like the United States. It wouldn't be the first time. Like, the United States is notorious for getting us involved in various different wars for some sort of unstated goal that the people in the military know, you know, at least the top people, top brass, and some top people in political parties and in high government positions know, but they withhold that information from the American people. Case in point, the Iraq War.
Not beyond that, like you saw when he sat down with Tucker Carlson,
Yep.
he asked to join NATO himself. Why are we not having a productive relationship with Russia? I call that Cold War hangover. People that grew up under their desks afraid of a nuclear bomb can never see Russia outside of being villainous. And quite frankly, I think Zelensky he's suspended elections. He's locked down churches. He's locked up nuns. I'm a Christian. I don't like this guy at all. Just let's argue honestly and not use all the same rhetoric. And so to be this far into, this is like the third time Trump is running and we're seeing the same thing. Oh, everyone who supports him is a racist, is a sexist. I'm just bored. Not just a Trump supporter. And I think in the beginning, they kind of made it seem like I was always angry, always talking bad about Black people, which is like any person that listens to my podcast. White people get it 10 times worse, but the media will only pluck a clip when I'm speaking about a Black issue. And then it's, oh, there she is again saying stuff about Black people. They did a very good job of conditioning, I would say, the public just via the mainstream media and flashy headlines to think that I had, like, they called me like a self-hating Black person. Right. It was completely wild. It was out of it.
This is the type of stuff actually that I hear on this channel all the time. Now, there's only so many videos that are directly about Black people, so to speak, but there's been people who have accused me of only posting denigrating videos about the Black community. This is probably because the only videos that some of those people click is related to those specific topics. If that's all you look at, that's all YouTube's going to recommend. If there's topics about Ukraine and some of those people never look at those videos, YouTube's not going to continue recommending the same thing. So a lot of this stuff is algorithmic. It has nothing to do with what the person is actually referring to. However, I've heard it all. I've heard, oh, you hate yourself. You have a Black mom. You're always going to be an N-word. I mean, you name it. I've heard it.
Is that if you just stand for truth, even in the beginning when it's really hard and people say terrible things about you, and I've been called everything you could possibly imagine, then there's that moment, even if it takes years, where they do come back and they say you were right, particularly about BLM. I mean, I was hitting the drum about the finances so early, and I'm going, this, like, I'm not saying that you don't have feelings about this thing, but I am telling you something else is going on, and this is going to harm the Black community in the end. This money is just going to be zapped out of communities, and communities are going to be destroyed. And then when
all the money went to basically a bunch of Black lesbians to support a bunch of LGBTQ initiatives that had nothing to do with Black people whatsoever.
Was proven right. It was so refreshing to hear people say, yeah, we kind of hated her for a really long time. We're kind of saying this for a really long time. And then, you know, the fraud of Patrice Cullors and what they were doing with the money. And so my brain just works differently. I am different and I'm happy being different. I don't want to be the same, but I also do respect. I think I've learned in the process as well is to just respect where people are at. You know, my sisters did not like where I was at when I started speaking in the way that I was speaking.
How many sisters do you have?
I have 2 sisters, and for me, my sisters, they never cared. Like, I'd be like, can you watch my cat? I have to go to a Trump thing. And my sister would be like, oh, are you going to another one of your Klansman rallies? Like, yeah, I'll watch your cat, you know? It's always a joke.
Yeah, and I get it. And I guess for me, because I think about it, and I remember when you...
Now it's went from Klan rally to Nazi rally, apparently. It's just getting more and more downhill, I guess.
When you speak on these things and you take positions about, you take such positions, particularly if it's antithetical or the antithesis of what the Black community will point to, do you think about it and do so on purpose because, dare I say, you're disgusted with us as a community for being hoodwinked by the Democratic Party in your eyes? Is that possible?
So that's a very good question. And disgusted would not be the right term for it. Frustrated, yes, and constantly trying to give people the facts so that they understand that Lyndon Baines Johnson was an avowed racist and he hated us, and yet we are doing everything that he wanted us to do. We are reacting emotionally and not rationally. We seem to be a stereotype of irrationality, actually. All we have to do is make them feel something and they won't react. And I want to be clear, it's not just Black Americans. The Me Too movement was another manifestation of that. That's why I'm doing this Harvey Weinstein series. But what really does upset me about the Black community is that the manner in which we defend criminals, you will not find this in any other community. Okay, so white person gets shot, killed, unarmed. They're not coming out. White people are not coming out and burning down their own neighborhoods, right? They're going to be
Did you see the Black community attack me for going off about OJ being celebrated? Did you see that?
Yeah, they've conditioned us to actually defend the worst in our communities. They just will let it go. You think Chinese people are going to run outside if they're like, well, listen, this guy was high on fentanyl. He got into a brush up with police officers and he died. Chinese people will be like, especially Asian moms are just dead serious. They'd be like, you idiot, good for you. So your embarrassment, never come home. This is how Asian women are. They have a standard. You think Jewish people are coming outside and gonna, rally around? No. They all know that they think of that as like a natural process. We don't want to associate with that. And we have the exact opposite mindset. And when I say the exact opposite, I mean also the reverse of that being that the most educated and the most accomplished people in our community, in terms of their intellect, we reject. How can we ever get ahead, right? Oh, Condoleezza Rice. No, she's a traitor. She's Uncle Tom. Clarence Thomas, Supreme Court Justice, he's a traitor. He's an Uncle Tom. But Dr. Ben Carson, a literal brain surgeon. Black people will call him stupid. It's crazy. So there's no way Black America can get ahead with that backwards mindset where you put George Floyd on a T-shirt and you denigrate and disrespect someone like Clarence Thomas. I'm just not with it.
Guys, if I had $1 or even a freaking nickel, maybe even a penny for how many times I have heard or been made fun of, picked at, called out for the way that I speak, for studying all the time, reading, for not wanting to go to the club, not doing drugs. I mean, not being a criminal. Like, I am not kidding about any one of these things. And for having like a corporate America job, even today, even in corporate America, there's been Black people who have made comments about the way that I speak as if I was speaking too white, as if speaking the English language properly is only something that white people are capable of doing and only something that white people should do. Guys, I done heard all the same stuff that Candace Owens is saying. I 100% resonate with it. And I didn't used to like Candace Owens. Candace used to get on my freaking nerves back in the day because the radical left had a hold. Okay, they had my brain on lock. They had a lot of Black people. They still have majority of Black people's brains on lockdown, to where they have a majority of Black people being little soldiers, little foot soldiers, little puppets of the radical left. And they just don't see it yet. But that's why the Black Anomaly Rising is here, because we're here to wake people up. We're here to get people to think independently and serve, at minimum, their best interests as best they can, rather than the interests of somebody else, without realizing that they're getting stabbed in the freaking back the whole time. I don't think Stephen A., in my opinion, was ready for this conversation. Everything Candace Owens is saying, I had already heard and have an understanding of. Stephen A. is like taken aback. We need more people on the left who have these leftist mindsets to bring on people like Candace Owens and have real non-adversarial conversations with each other, so that there can be a better understanding. Then maybe you could get America to the point where we're not scared to death of the radical left winning and opening the border up and transing kids and doing all this stupid lunacy stuff, just lying and shilling and basically devil worshiping. Because if you ask me, all of that stuff is demonic and of the devil. All it is stuff to do with the kids and stuff like that. Nah. And I'm a little bit confused these days about, I know they have a grip on the black community, but I'm like, how the hell can y'all stand by while they're doing all of this weirdo stuff with the kids? Most black people are Christians. And I'm like, don't none of that LGBTQ stuff for adults, much less kids, have anything to do with Christianity. It's antithetical to Christianity. So how that can just be overlooked and you're going to stand behind Al Sharpton, stand strong behind Al Sharpton out here capping and clapping like a seal for a bunch of LGBTQ stuff makes absolutely no sense to me whatsoever. Shout out to Stephen A. Smith for being a little bit based, a little bit more red pilled these days, and especially for having Candace Owens on and having an open mind rather than being an adversarial nutcase like people like Angela Rye, or just being a little slow like Charlemagne out here. But these are just my thoughts, guys. Let me know what you think. Drop a like on the video. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. I appreciate you watching the Black Anomaly Rising channel. I'm out.
I didn't take that bait because I don't care. Why would I care? It's so untrue. Candace, it must be accepting funds from Putin.